you again, ladies. Item 12, just a dozen, Draft Economic Development Action Plan. And Richard is the liaison for Auckland Unlimited. Do you want to move this? And then Angela second. Okay, so it's just moved and seconded and put on the table for discussion. And please, again, just to note in the file, you've been workshopped in March 2021. I'm just going to hand it over to Janelle and James, and they could also mention the people who've been involved in this particular action plan. Kia ora, tēnā korua.
Kia ora, thank you, Mr. Chair, and kia ora koutou councillors. My name's James Robinson. I work at Auckland Unlimited, and working with Janelle Brickle here, we're the leads on the development of this Economic Development Action Plan. We'd just like to make a few introductory comments before we open up the conversation. So, look, first up, I just want to acknowledge, to the Chair's point, some of the other people in the room who have been involved in the development of this plan to date. We have Jacques Victor and Noah Maffett, Noah from Auckland Unlimited, who are the project owners, if you like. We also have our workstream leads sitting at the back there, John Norman from Auckland Unlimited, Tanya Porphyry from the Community and Social Innovation team here at Council, Nessa Carroll from the Strategic Advice Unit, Michael Boyle and Megan Howard from the Infrastructure Strategy team, Shan Maharaj from the Chief Economist Unit, and Denise O'Shaughnessy from the Strategic Advice team have all been involved in getting us to where we are so far. And they've also all been working with teams from across council and also all with representatives from the various CCOs within those teams as well. So, as the Chair has said, on March 24th, we workshopped the Draft Economic Development Action Plan framework with you. And today we're asking you to receive the draft plan itself so that we can continue to refine the plan. And we're also asking that you provide feedback between now and mid-June when we're looking to finalise the plan. Just a quick reminder, the primary objective of the plan, as was agreed by the CCO-CEs, is to define and agree the economic objectives and priorities as a council family and determine a coordinated course of action within the remit of the council family to inform the 10-year budget and work programs. So, out of scope, this isn't a long-term 10-year strategy for Auckland. It's a 3-year action plan for Auckland Council. We haven't included any unfunded actions. It simply covers implementation that sits within the council family. And we're also not undertaking an extensive consultation process, although Janelle would take you through the next steps in terms of consultation. The team, as I say, have worked across the council family collaboratively under the 6 core themes that we workshopped with you on March 24th. So those were Destination Tamaki Makaurau, Local Tamaki Makaurau, Skilled Tamaki Makaurau, Future Tamaki Makaurau, and Enabled Tamaki Makaurau, covering infrastructure and regulation. Just the final point I'd like to make, the collaborative approach has worked very well to date in terms of building a plan from the bottom up. And we feel it reflects a really good body of work. However, we're very conscious that this is still a draft document, and over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we want to do some further work to refine, to ensure that the actions talk to themselves and are expressed at the right level in terms of being strategic versus tactical, in terms of those actions being sitting in the right place within the plan, ensuring that they're aligned to the LTP and also ensuring that they're aligned to statements of intent, which are also being finalised across the CCOs at the moment. So I'll hand over to Janelle now, who'll just take you through some of the key next steps.
Tēnā koutou, yes, so I just would like to take you through the process from here and give you a bit of an expectation of what you should be receiving in the final plan, which will come to you in July. So the draft is public, but we will communicate directly with those groups that we have engaged with from the beginning. And I'll just take you through that quickly. So with iwi, for those who have responded and let us know their stated preference for engagement, we'll make sure we follow through in the way that they stated they prefer. We will follow up with those we have not yet heard from, and the draft plan will go to all iwi, again asking their stated preference for engagement, and we will make sure that we follow through with that. The Tamaki Makaurau Mana Whenua Forum received a memo in April, and we have an opportunity to go as early as next week, again with the draft. It's likely that that will be considered at the Economic Po in early June for them to give recommendations to the forum on 17th of June. So that will all be in time for to feed back into our process. The local boards are considering the draft plans through their May business meetings. They stated they would prefer to do that through formal resolution, provide feedback, so we expect that in early June. Our advisory panels, some have already given us their economic priorities and input in that way. We've been able to go to some of the groups, the Pacific Peoples Advisory Panel this week and the Ethnic Advisory Panel next week. Again, they will receive the draft and can feedback as per their preference. Our business community, we have some networks that we're pursuing through Auckland Unlimited, particularly in the Māori business network space. We also considered the Future Now Summit priorities from last year in the development of this plan. That Future Summit is tomorrow, so we'll have opportunity to hear some of those priorities again to consider in time for our final as appropriate. You'll note in the report that we have referred to monitoring frameworks and that needing to be further developed. So we talk about monitoring in a couple of ways. One is in terms of deliverables. So we need to further refine once those actions are finalised, who those owners are and the way that we will report back formally on the deliverables of those actions. In the draft action plan, we also have what we've called progress indicators. So those are more about the results or outcomes or impacts, if you will, of those actions. And so those will need further development to make sure that they're measurable and that they line up with other monitoring frameworks and measures that we use in other council and CCO plans. And finally, we've referenced also more work to be done on the guiding principles. So those guiding principles are transitioning to a low carbon regenerative economy, supporting economic opportunities for Māori, and responding to our communities of greatest need. We have had subject matter experts advise us to date on how to incorporate those principles in the development of our actions, but we want to do further work on those to make sure that we can articulate how those principles are being reflected in the actions once they're finalised again. So you'll expect to see a little bit more detail around how those guiding principles have been reflected in the plan. So as James said, your feedback is welcome at any point from now till June 14th, I think we've put. Again, in any way you see fit, probably best to direct through James and myself in the first instance. We do have our workstream leads here. If there are questions pertaining to the area, we'll just direct them directly to the workstream leads as they're very knowledgeable.
It's more a comment than a question. Okay. Sorry, you might have already said this, but are you going to change Panuku development to Eco Panuku in your document? Because that's been announced. It was supposed to be Eco Panuku right from the beginning. So you might.
Through the chair, yes, we'll do that then. Thank you.
Now they can put their mic on. Councillor Dalton.
Thank you. Will this Economic Development Action Plan end up being reported back through the CCO Review Committee and then to Finance? I'm just wondering why it sits with PACE. I think I asked that question at the workshop and I can't remember the answer.
Did you want to do it?
Through the chair, yeah, sure. It is in the PACE's terms of reference, economic development, so we did have questions as to where this fits, because it's a bit of a tricky one, but we did decide right at the beginning of the process that it sits here in the committee. It is very relevant to the CCO review, because that came through in the recommendations, but it is a little bit bigger than that. This was being looked at before the review came out, so that provided the impetus to get the work underway. Does that help?
And I mean, it is across council, it's just not with the CCO. And so, and I mean, no disrespect to what Janelle said, that this is bigger than the CCO review committee. But that's what, but I mean, look, it is, and that's why. But we can always debate it later on offline. Oh, of course we can. I think the answer will still be the same, but we can always. So look, I'm going to move through. Councillor Coombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora, thank you for the work. Two questions. One is in 2012, I think it was, Auckland became a fair trade city, and that was ushered in through the Economic Development Committee at the time, and I think Councillor Walker was involved in that process, and that was considered part of our kind of economic focus, and it just seems to have been dropped, or I haven't got any visibility about what part of council looks after our fair trade status and make sure that we keep it, because there are requirements that we're meant to fulfil every year. And I don't think it's getting reported anywhere, but I might have missed it. So I'm just keen that there's kind of an owner of our fair trade city status. Do we know?
I guess the best answer to that is we'll look into it and come back to you on that. I was involved in the development of the 2012 EDS, and obviously the monitoring of that sat with the old economic development group that no longer exists. So I don't know if that's got fell between some cracks somewhere, but we'll find out.
I guess that would be my feedback too, that I'd love to see that incorporated into this plan as an action, in terms of, like, we were at one point talking about like making the Masters game was going to be a fair trade Masters game, and that, or again, there wasn't a champion to make it happen. The second question, Mr. Chair, if I may, it talks about there's the 6 work streams, and one of them is Destination Tamaki Makaurau, and I understand that, but also Auckland Unlimited now is also refocusing around, it's not just destination marketing, attracting people, it's also how we manage them sustainably, and that's particularly for our parts of Auckland that don't need more visitors. It's about how we manage them. So I just wondered, is that going to be incorporated into that work stream?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the Destination Auckland Recovery Plan that was developed about 12 months ago talks explicitly about that I guess that shift from a stronger focus on destination marketing to destination management, and that the actions within that plan are picked up within that work stream. We also have a specific action sitting under local work stream around the development of those destination management plans, with the first ones off the rank around Waiheke and Great Barrier Island.
Deputy Mayor Cashmore.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, team. I acknowledge the wise heads behind you as well have all helped develop this rather complex and potentially cumbersome piece of work. I mean, there's an awful lot to it, and I understand the complexity. However, will you be coming back to us with a sort of prioritised list of actions that are immediately measurable, to your point, Ms. Brickle, that there is actually identifying things that are easy to do, medium to do, hard to do, quick response, medium response, slow response, and how you actually calibrate those. So will that be in the final program we see in July?
Something I guess that we have talked about internally as a team is that to date the plan has been built very bottom up, if you like, and something that we would like to do over the next 6 to 8 weeks is take more of that top down view. So we have been to the CCOCE's forum once, but we'd like to go back to them and perhaps try to some of those priorities and what are the big things. And I know that the 2012 EDS did actually have a list of priority actions that it identified, and that could be a mechanism that we could introduce into this to help that prioritisation come through more clearly.
I think that sort of work will be really important, because you're going to need to get traction quite quickly, and it might be the small ones, the easy ones that work for you to help build programs going forward further. But that's my commentary, Mr. Chair. I know it's difficult and challenging, but if we get this right, we can actually be influential in how we do things. But also, it's got to be very, very real. You know, if we're going to live in a new world, it's very cognizant of climate change. How much is international tourism going to play a role in our economy and travel generally? So there's a lot of complexities around this stuff.
So we're still on questions, and I didn't want to stop the Deputy Mayor. So Councillor Collins online.
Kia ora, Chair. Just two questions from me in my quick sentence. That's commentary, Chair. I'll just slip it in as I really like what I'm reading in this report. I wanted to ask, and thankful that they came to the Pacific Panel engagement hui on Monday. That was really good to have them there. I just wondered, at what stage in your process do you get everything on paper? Do you have the chance to actually stand back and say, is this, and ask yourselves, and those who you'll be speaking with, is this ambitious enough? I'm probably reflecting on the very sobering statistics that show that essentially Pasifika incomes haven't returned to levels since the GFC fallout, and we haven't seen them in real terms as similar levels in 2006. So we really are behind any kind of play when it comes to Pasifika communities, essentially. So I'm interested in what the process is and people standing back and asking, is this ambitious enough given what the narrative is in the document?
Thank you, through the chair. I guess that's what we hope to ascertain through the feedback process for others to determine whether they think that's ambitious enough. We are limited a bit by our scope in terms of it being a 3-year action plan, in terms of it being council and CCO levers only. But we do see this as being a step in the right direction and something that helps us to do a few things but do them really well, so that does sort of lend itself to more ambitious and better, doing things better.
Cool, thank you. And just my second question, but this probably might not need to be answered because it's probably captured in the discussion, but just in 3.5 of the report and advocacy, I'm interested in the kind of who does it, when is it done, what for will it be done in. So I guess that's probably something that'll come out of ongoing discussions, because I think the advocacy to central government and other places with specific regard in the reports of West and South will be something I'll have a close eye on.
Yep, noted. Thank you. Councillor Watson, and I still got Councillor Cooper, and then Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, just a rather pragmatic question. Who actually physically wrote the report, just as a point of interest?
Through the chair, we all did. So each the Chief Economist unit provided a lot of the context at the beginning, so that was the front end, and then each of the workstream leads in their matter of expertise has written their sections.
Make the comment, Mr. Chair, that that's a very desirable state of affairs where we utilise the intellectual hardware of our own officers, many of whom are more than capable of writing reports rather than going out to consultants. So well done.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Oh, sorry to come back for a second go. It was just, one can just remind me what CCS is? In these charts in attachment A, you've got delivery, who's going to deliver things, and it have things like Council CCS, Comet CCS. What is CCS? I was trying to find it somewhere in the document.
Thank you for the question. I presume that will be customer and community services.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes, we're very happy to do that.
Sorry, I was missing, because I used to be called Community Empowerment Unit. Sorry, that's it. I've got it now. You're just moving too fast. So my question is really around the delivery agent, when you've got things like Comet delivering some of this stuff, and that's Counties Manukau Education Trust. And I know I've asked before, and they mostly deliver in Manukau, and that's fine. But what I'm concerned about then is that a lot of these outcomes they're looking at, particularly in the young people area, might just be delivered there. because other stuff that says West and South is Auckland Council, similar youth and education stuff. So we're just using Comet for South Auckland and other parts of our council for other areas. So that's attachment A 3.1, skilled tamaki makaurau. And I mean, I would have thought some of the stuff, work with secondary schools to prototype initiatives, that would be the work that Comet should be doing right across. But I'm just a bit confused, and also about capacity. If they're saying here, do it right across New Zealand, it says regional and nationally in 3.12. So convene the youth employability Aotearoa system locally, regionally, nationally. Why are we doing that if it's our CCO?
Kia ora e Raurangatirama. I can't speak too deeply to the Comet work. My understanding is that they aren't just now in South Auckland, and my understanding is that they're looking at systems change, and in order for them to be able to do that, they're going to have to work with the regional and national policy settings, because that's where the big levers are, and also that's where the investment is going to need to come from.
Thank you. And just is that really, it's been 10 years, you know, and so we're only just starting to get them working. And I have asked many times, and they go, oh, we're going to do work in other places, we're going to work in other places. So it's good to see they are finally going to work in other places. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. One specific and one more general question. So in the report under 3.5.4, it says advocate for and demonstrate the potential of a Green New Deal. Can I just ask you what that term means exactly?
Yeah, kia ora, Councillor. This is something I'm personally very passionate about. It's about how can we create socioeconomic prosperity, particularly for our communities that have been left behind, through economic activity that is also good for our biosphere. So the new markets in the circular economy, technologies in reducing our carbon emissions, improving our biodiversity, improving how we use water. So all of these things are what we would consider to be part of the emerging economy. The Green New Deal bit is that it also has to create social equity. If these things just widen the gap between our communities most in need and the rest of Auckland, then we've failed. So the idea is that we tether the two together.
Thank you. And my second question, and I reserve my right to speak very briefly, where does the government fit in all of this at a general level? The government in opposition did fantastic work on the Future of Work Commission. There were beautiful reports made. When do we get to rubber meets the road time? When do we get some money from them?
I'm not sure I can answer that question. But at the workshop, we talked about the potential for our governing body to really get behind and advocate for at least some focus on Auckland. Yeah, our fair share. That's all we're asking for.
Councillor Walker, looks like the last question, and then I'll ask our staff to step back.
Mine's a comment.
Oh, well, you're in the line now. So if there's no further, if there's no further questions, look, thank you so much to you and also all the staff that are behind you leading this. And yeah, so look, just want to acknowledge you all. Thank you so much. So look, I'll hit comments, and at the moment we've got 4, Councillor Casey, Hills, Henderson and Walker.
We spent the morning listening to our advisory panels tell us that they wanted to be in early on strategies. I just want to say congratulations to the team who went to the Pacific Island Advisory Panel meeting on Monday and are going to the Ethnic Peoples Panel next week. This is ahead of it going out into the public arena. As you saw, both panels have economic development as one of their priorities. So it's just to say, this is walking the talk So thank you so much. And as for Tanya, I'd like to bottle her along with H. McArdle from the Rainbow Panel, because when Tanya gets on her feet to talk about inequality, it comes from the heart. And I've heard her now do it twice, and I want to hear it again next week. It's sensational. That's what this is about. This is what this is about, putting those figures to bed.
Thank you. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, first of all, just because he's here, just want to acknowledge David Norman, Chief Economist, who is his last week, next couple of days. Just a phenomenal job in this place, and I found his personal connection with me when I've needed it, or a phone call or some advice, but also just the professionalism and advice he's given us, and
the style and panache that he
yeah,
has in it.
our business improvement districts, presenting to them and just being quite, sure about the figures and not sugarcoating anything. So I really appreciated that. And obviously your input into this. Just want to acknowledge this plan is huge. I think it's so exciting to see something that is incorporated with the Auckland plan. You've got Te Tātaki Tāwhiri in there, all the CCOs involved, as many departments as possible involved. This is what I love to see, and what I believe the kind of way we have been working for a lot longer than the probably public think. But I think that the future of the council group or the council whānau, to get everyone under the same umbrella working together for the same things, you're able to get contracts for big organisations, get all those good all the factors that we want, whether it's youth or Pacifica or Māori development, jobs, the Green New Deal mentioned in there is just exciting. But yeah, I think this is an economic development action plan that truly speaks to the whole organisation, but also the city and every corner of it. So I'm pretty excited that it's all here and the actions are clear, and we're not looking for all sort of extra bells and whistles. It's incorporating what we're doing and building on it. So I think it's pretty exciting. We're sort of not using very much fanfare with this, but I think it's a really good direction forward. And there's been a lot of work done right across council, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. Councillor Henderson.
Yes, thanks. Councillor Casey stole what I was going to say, basically. Fantastic. But I just wanted to kind of reflect the Youth Advisory Panel that we had just earlier today. And this is the kind of work that I think will be extremely important for young people in Auckland. I'm just really proud of it, and I think the staff have done an absolutely fantastic job. I really commend them. So thank you.
Councillor Walker.
Just want to commend the team on this piece of work. It's really good. I think the short-term nature of it is desirable, and the emphasis on action and delivery. I've got a couple of suggestions, and this, they just go to, again, the short term. One of which is around energy, which is looking to be, particularly electricity, a limiting factor in terms of the circumstance we've got around Auckland, and that ties in with infrastructure. It may not be something that we have a direct control over, though I'd suggest that Auckland Council is the largest user of electricity, certainly in the region. And the other is just around tying in what we can do around housing, which obviously is pretty critical. And the last suggestion is something like this is great. Obviously, if you can have a few pictures and maybe just a few examples, so that somebody can pick up that it's tangible.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Collins, before you have your comment online, Councillor Darby, did you put your hand up? Okay, I'll go to Councillor Collins. The ladies were unsure, so at least I got confirmation. Councillor Collins and then Councillor Darby.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier, similar to the what's been said by Councillors Casey and Henderson, I spoke of the sense of urgency with which the Pacific panel was operating. I just want to quote something from the report. The low incomes of Pasifika peoples result in a $1.8 billion gap between Pasifika people's earnings compared to the rest of Auckland. That's an average of $340 per week per Pasifika worker, enough to cover a weekly food bill for the average household of 2 adults and 3 or more children. I think those are really sobering ideas to have in this report, and it is the challenge, I guess, for the Pasifika panel in particular to act with the level of urgency with which they're acting. And so I'm really excited about this report. I think that there's a real opportunity here to work out what's ambitious enough, what's going to get certain groups, whether it's Māori, Pasifika, young people, disabled communities, the rainbow communities, all of these diverse groups that we've heard from earlier today, how we ensure that they're given a fair opportunity to really participate in the economic well-being and development of our city. So I think this is a really important time. I also wanted to make a shout out to people from your teams originally, Councillor Filipina, people from TSI, now CSI, folk like Gail Surgener, Anna Jacob and Tanya Pofare, who I've worked with closely during our times with TSI, and the ongoing passion and commitment that is always evident in the work that they're doing. So I'm really grateful for what's been presented before us today. So I'm looking forward to how we continue this discussion, how we will really participate in it, and the point at which we will all ask of ourselves, are we being ambitious enough? And I know it's a 3-year plan, and I want to encourage everyone involved to be as ambitious as possible, because that $1.8 billion gap that we have between Pasifika earners and those in the rest of the city goes to show just how inequitable the socio-economic standing is for many in this city. And there's way too big an economic gap in this city for my liking. And I see the work that's going to come out of this report as a way to start to bridge that gap and even out and balance out the socio-economic divide that exists in our city. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Chair. Look, there's a lot of content there. It's pretty dense, and there's been thorough examination of it, which is great. Probably and I should have asked this when the team were at the table. Probably my only, it's not even a caveat. Just what I'm looking for really is not just a plan that is good for Auckland, but a plan that is actually good for the nation and how it actually contributes to the nation. I'm probably searching for a little bit more in it that actually talks about how the success of Auckland actually is going to contribute in a significant way to the nation, and that's not just in terms of taxation receipts, and as we see, region strength cities around the world, they're actually not takers of the nation, they're actually contributors to nation. And maybe it's there. I'm just not picking it up maybe with the strength that I was expecting. And I emphasise that because I actually think when we talk to government about what we might need for Auckland, we need to always be prefacing that with what Auckland is embarking on, the new journey that Auckland is embarking on from an economic perspective, and how the future is going to be looking very different for government. They're going to be relying on this funnel of economic activity that is being channeled through Auckland that will be contributing to the nation. That's probably the thrust of. Wouldn't say it's a concern. I'm just thinking it needs to be strongly emphasised. Thank you.
No, thank you, Councillor Darby, and everybody knows that whatever happens in Tamaki Makaurau has an effect nationally. So when you actually made your comments, I saw James, not one, nodding his head, two, Janelle was talking to him. So at least we know that the whole team over there has taken notice of it. So but before I put the recommendation, just want to acknowledge you all. Again, with this work, you've heard the comments that have been passed by the councillors around this work. So ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. It's awesome. We're on the journey. And I just look forward to any more feedback going to you. I think it was the 14th of June, you said, Janelle, and also coming back to the PACE committee in July. So again, thank you so much to everybody. And it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Move to item 13, unlucky for some, and it's the reserved revocation